As mayoral candidates battle to become Toronto's next leader, the eventual winner will have a tall task ahead of them. In the first of a three-part series, CTV Toronto's Natalie examines the issues which have led to some of the challenges the city faces, like traffic gridlock, construction, and homeless encampments. The series is called Downtown Decay, and it asks, is the city's core coming apart at its seams, and how did we get to this point? CTV's Natalie Johnson joins us live now to discuss more about this. Natalie, thanks for your time. Really, when you take a look at where the downtown core was prior to COVID-19 and where we stand now, there have been some very obvious differences. And so speaking to people on the streets, speaking to people who are experts in this field, what are you hearing?
Certainly, we spoke to dozens of people out on the street who live downtown, who work downtown, who come downtown, and there was a general consensus that the city is not what it was a few years ago, that the shine has worn off a little bit. And certainly the pandemic exacerbated that situation. But in speaking with experts about this, urban economists, urban planners, many of them said that this was years in the making and that there were a lot of issues of livability that were bubbling below the surface, largely due to a lack of investment in infrastructure over the years. And then when COVID-19 hit and the office towers emptied, that is when the core really started to slow down and the city started seeing the issues that we're experiencing now.
Yeah, and it's still happening in real time now as we look post-pandemic. But when you take a look at, the issues at hand, especially with infrastructure, especially with transit, there really is no finger pointing that you can pinpoint one exact reason, because we're talking about decades almost of delay. And so now the city's trying its best to play catch up.
Well, that's exactly it. And the incoming Toronto Region Board of Trade president says it's like wearing a shoe that is two sizes too small. The population of Toronto has expanded rapidly over the last number of years, and now we're dealing with infrastructure that hasn't kept pace with that growth. So it's easy to see. You go downtown, you can't drive, you can't walk, you can't cycle. There's construction everywhere as we're trying to play catch up on that routine maintenance and on these new capital builds, and it's making really difficult for people to move around, and that de-incentivizes actually coming downtown at a time when we need to restore that foot traffic.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you've spoken to these experts, when you take a look at the grand scope, Toronto in comparison to some of the other top cities in North America, where does Toronto's bounce back post-pandemic fall?
Well, the unfortunate truth is that Toronto is near the bottom of the pack when it comes to this downtown recovery. There's some fantastic data out of the U of T School of Cities where Karen Chappell, a professor there, analyzed cell phone data from people in 63 North American urban centers to track where those people were. And as it turns out, Toronto ranks 55th out of 63 cities. It's only bounced back to 47% of the activity level that we saw pre-pandemic. And so it's clear that people are not going downtown. You can look around downtown and see that anecdotally, but the data back that up. And the office towers are very empty. We're looking at vacancy rates north of 15% right now. People are still working from home. The hybrid work model is here to stay, arguably, and that is having a big impact on the number of people who are downtown, which really reduces the vitality. And of course, there is a major effect on the restaurants, the retail, all of these other amenities that are trying to operate downtown but can't continue to do so without that foot traffic.
Absolutely. Now, this is a three-part series, Downtown Decay. Now, yesterday you sort of laid the groundwork of how we got here. What can we expect for tonight's episode?
Well, tonight we're taking a look at what the situation is downtown at this moment. How does Toronto rank compared to other cities? And what can be done moving forward? We're going to get into that a bit more tomorrow night as well. What is the path forward, especially in the context of an election where we are going to have a new mayor at the helm? How can we revitalize downtown? The question for a lot of people is whether we try to revert to that 9-to-5 model where the downtown is primarily a workplace. A lot of cities are moving away from that. A lot of cities are trying to lean in to a 24/7 vitality where it's not just about the office towers and the people in suits who walk into those buildings every day. It's about creating an around-the-clock hub where you have families, you have kids and dogs, and more cultural amenities, say, that you even do right now. And that will help bring the people back to the core and will then allow, the economic spin-off and the vitality to be restored in that sense.
Some really interesting stuff, and you'll dive in further this evening. CTV's Natalie Johnson, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.